My name is Rachel Thompson, and I'm 32 years old. 3 months of my life went into planning my sister's dream wedding, negotiating with vendors at dawn, hand-selecting orchids that matched her exact shade of blush, even personally calligraphy writing place cards for 200 guests until my fingers cramped. I thought I was rebuilding our family after Dad's death shattered us 2 years ago. But when I arrived at that five-star venue in my cocktail dress, security stopped me cold. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're listed as a vendor, not a guest." My own mother confirmed it with 4 words that still echo. "You're just the help." What happened next in that ballroom changed everything. About my inheritance, my family, and my understanding of my father's final wishes. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Here's how it all unfolded. The Riverside Grand Hotel gleamed under the September sun, its marble entrance decorated with $10,000 worth of white roses and baby's breath, arrangements I'd personally overseen at 5 a.m. that morning. I arrived at 3 p.m., 2 hours before the ceremony, wearing the navy cocktail dress Jessica had approved for family photos. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I approached the grand ballroom, mental checklist running, catering confirmation at 3:15, final sound check at 3:30, bridal suite touch-up at 4 o'clock. "Excuse me, ma'am." The security guard, a young man with an iPad, stepped into my path. "Are you with the Thompson-Bradley wedding?" "Yes, I'm Rachel Thompson, the bride's sister." He scrolled through his screen, frowning, then scrolled again. "Could you spell your last name?" "Thompson. Same as the bride." His finger moved across the screen more slowly this time. "I see your name, but..." He turned the iPad toward me. There it was, under a section labeled Vendors and Contractors. Rachel Thompson, Event Coordinator. "There must be a mistake. I'm family." "Ma'am, I can only go by the list provided by the bride and her mother. You're authorized for vendor access only. That's the service entrance around back." My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Where are you? The photographer needs to check the ceremony lighting." Not, "Where are you? We're taking family photos soon." The distinction hit me like ice water. "Could you call someone? My mother, Linda Thompson?" He radioed his supervisor. 5 minutes passed. Guests began arriving, colleagues from Dad's company who knew me, who'd watched me grow up. They walked past as I stood there like hired help, their curious glances burning into my back. 2 years ago, when Dad's heart gave out in his office at Thompson Enterprises, I was the one who handled everything. The funeral arrangements, the employee notifications, the interim business decisions while Mom and Jessica grieved. "You're so strong, Rachel," everyone said, "just like your father." What they meant was, "You don't cry in public, so you must be fine." Mom always said I inherited too much of Dad's personality, the workaholism, the emotional distance, the way I turned feelings into spreadsheets and schedules. "Jessica has his heart," she'd tell relatives at holidays. "But Rachel, she's all business, no warmth." The first sign I'd become an outsider came 3 weeks after the funeral. Mom called a family meeting about Dad's estate. At least, she called Jessica. I found out when I dropped by the house and saw Harold Morrison's car in the driveway. "Oh, Rachel," Mom had said, barely glancing up from the papers. "We're just handling some formalities. Nothing you need to worry about." "Dad's will?" "Jessica and I are sorting it out. You know how these things confuse you, all that legal language." This from the woman whose daughter graduated summa cum laude with a business degree. But I was too raw from grief to push. Morrison had looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers. "Perhaps Rachel should..." "Harold, we've got this covered," Mom cut him off. "Rachel has her little event business to worry about." Little event business. My company that had just coordinated the governor's inaugural ball. But in Mom's eyes, compared to Jessica's part-time job at a boutique, I was the one playing at success. I'd left that day thinking grief made people act strangely. I had no idea they were already rewriting history, erasing my place in Dad's legacy while his office chair was still warm. The second sign came when Jessica announced her engagement 6 months ago. "I need the perfect wedding planner," she'd gushed at Sunday dinner. "Someone who really understands our family's standing in the community." Rachel could. Dad's brother, Uncle Pete, had started. "Oh, I couldn't ask Rachel to work for free," Jessica laughed. that tinkling sound that meant the opposite. Unless, would you mind, Rach? As my wedding gift? The table went silent. Mom smiled her approval. Extended family waited. There it was. The trap. Refuse, and I'm the selfish sister who won't help family. Accept, and I'm staff. Of course, I heard myself say. Family helps family. That phrase, Dad's favorite, tasted like ash. He'd meant it about loyalty, about showing up. They'd twisted it into servitude. Over the next 3 months, I poured $20,000 of my own money into deposits when Jessica's budget got tight. I leveraged every professional relationship I had for discounts. When vendors asked about payment, I covered it, keeping receipts Mom promised to handle after the wedding stress passed. You're so good at this organizational stuff, Jessica would say during fittings, while I juggled 3 phone calls. I could never keep all these details straight like you do. The bridesmaids, her sorority sisters, would exchange looks. One asked, "Aren't you in the wedding party, Rachel?" "Rachel's too busy being amazing behind the scenes," Jessica answered for me. "She doesn't need to be up front. That's not really her thing. Not my thing. Standing beside my only sister at her wedding wasn't my thing, but coordinating it for free, that was exactly my thing." The lobby suddenly felt arctic as Mom's heels clicked across the marble toward me. "Rachel." Mom's voice carried that particular chill reserved for employees who'd overstepped. "Why are you causing a scene?" "I'm not causing anything. I'm on the vendor list." "As you should be. You're working today, aren't you?" The security guard pretended to check his phone. 2 of Dad's former business partners walked past, recognition flickering in their eyes. My chest tightened. "I'm her sister, who agreed to plan this wedding. Planners don't typically join the family table." She pulled out an envelope from her clutch. "Here's your payment. $3,000 as we discussed." We'd never discussed payment. The receipts in my car totaled $20,000. But this wasn't about money. It was about what I'd lose if I walked away now. The last thread connecting me to my family would snap. No more holidays, no more Sunday dinners, no more pretending we were healing from Dad's death together. "Did you really think you were a guest?" Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're the help, Rachel. You've always been the help." Behind her, through the ballroom's glass doors, I could see the company table, Thompson Enterprises executives, all watching our family business literally collapse. Jessica had been named interim CEO after Dad died, despite never working there a day in her life. The quarterly reports I'd secretly monitored showed losses mounting. 3 more months of her leadership, and Dad's 40-year legacy would be bankrupt. If I stayed silent, took my vendor's position, smiled for the photos from the background, maybe I could still influence Jessica, still protect what Dad built. But standing there, check in Mom's manicured hand, security guard waiting to escort me to the service entrance, I realized something. They didn't want me to save anything. They wanted me to disappear. Thank you for clarifying my position. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family despite doing everything for them, you'll understand what happened next. This story is about to take a turn that nobody at that wedding saw coming, not my mother, not my sister, and definitely not me. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support helps me share more stories about standing up for yourself with dignity. Also, comment below. Have you ever been taken advantage of by family? I read every single comment. Let's continue with the moment everything changed. Your position? Mom's laugh was sharp. You don't have a position. I planned everything. And you were paid. She waved the check. Take it. 20,000 in deposits. Your choice. No one asked you to. Jessica asked for help. You went overboard as always. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. More guests streamed past. Dad's golf buddies, Mom's book club, all witnessing this. My phone buzzed. Harold Morrison again. 3rd time today. I should go. You should work. We paid for a coordinator. You paid 3,000. My day rate is 5. Family discount. Mom's smile could cut glass. Or are we not family? Clearly not. Don't be dramatic. Jessica needs this day perfect. Jessica needs a reality check. Excuse me? The company's dying. She's burned through. Not your concern. Dad built that company and left it to Jessica. Did he? Were you there when he signed? Mom's face went white, then red. How dare you? I dare because someone should. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. Of what? The debt she's creating? The employees she's firing? Of her ability to be loved? The words hung between us like knives. Your father loved you, Rachel, but he didn't like you. Too cold. Too much like him. My throat closed. Behind her, someone cleared their throat, Harold Morrison standing by the ballroom entrance watching us with an expression I couldn't read. He held a leather folder. $3,000, Mom said, pressing the check into my hand. Take it and do your job, or leave. Choose now. I looked at the check. $3,000 for 3 months of work, for $20,000 in costs. For my sister's wedding, I wasn't welcome to attend as family. The math was finally clear. My phone lit up with Morrison's fourth text. Rachel, urgent matter regarding your father's estate. Please don't leave the venue. Legal implications. Legal implications? Mom had turned toward the ballroom, expecting me to follow like the hired help she'd designated me as. But Morrison's messages had started at noon, increasingly urgent. The last one made my stomach knot. Mrs. Thompson, the venue manager appeared, looking flustered. There's been a documentation delivery that requires immediate attention. A notarized packet? Mom spun around. What documentation? From Morrison and Associates. Marked time-sensitive for the Thompson family. She held up a sealed envelope. It requires signatures from all beneficiaries. There are no pending estate matters, Mom said quickly. Too quickly. Ma'am, I'm just relaying the message. Mr. Morrison insisted it be handled before the ceremony begins. I watched Mom's jaw tighten. She'd been avoiding Morrison for months, claiming all estate matters were settled. But estates didn't send urgent documentation 2 years after settlement. We'll handle it after, Mom said. He specified before, said it was legally time-sensitive. Jessica appeared in the doorway, radiant in her $10,000 dress, that I'd negotiated down from 15. Mom, the photographer's ready for family portraits. Rachel's just leaving, Mom announced. Actually, I said, surprising myself with my steady voice, I need to review that documentation first, as a Thompson family member. You're not... My legal name is Rachel Thompson. My father was David Thompson. That makes me a beneficiary of his estate, regardless of today's vendor list. The venue manager looked between us, confused. Guests had stopped pretending not to watch. Jessica's perfect smile faltered. 5 minutes, I said. Then I'll leave. Morrison appeared in the doorway behind Jessica, his expression grave. I'm afraid 5 minutes won't be sufficient, Ms. Thompson. Harold? Mom's voice could have frozen champagne. This is highly inappropriate. Linda, I've been trying to reach you for 6 months. Morrison stepped past Jessica, who looked like a confused porcelain doll in her wedding gown. You've ignored 17 certified letters. Our business is concluded. The estate's business is not. He turned to me. Rachel, there are documents you need to see. She doesn't need to see anything, Mom snapped. The will was executed. Which will? Morrison's question landed like a bomb. The lobby went silent. Even the security guard had given up pretending disinterest. 2 of Dad's business partners moved closer, sharks scenting blood in the water. Mom? Jessica's voice went high. What does he mean, which will? Nothing. Harold's confused. But Mom's hands shook as she clutched her purse. I have the amended will here, Morrison said, patting his leather folder. The one David signed 2 weeks before his death. The one you claimed didn't exist when you submitted the 2021 version to probate. My knees nearly buckled. Amended will. 2 weeks before. When Dad had called me to his office, talking about legacy, about who truly understood the business, I'd thought he was being sentimental. We should discuss this privately, Mom hissed. You've had 2 years for private discussion, Morrison replied. The law requires transparency when fraud is suspected. Fraud? Jessica's voice cracked. Mom, what is he talking about? A cousin whispered to another. Someone was recording on their phone. The Thompson family scandal, unfolding in real time at the society wedding of the year. Inside, Mom commanded. Now. Actually, Morrison said, given the number of witnesses present who knew David, this might be the perfect venue for truth. He looked directly at me. Your father would have wanted transparency, Rachel, full transparency. We moved into the ballroom like a funeral procession. 200 guests already seated, turning to watch as Jessica entered in her wedding dress, followed by Mom, me, and Morrison. The string quartet stopped mid-song. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jessica laughed nervously into the microphone someone handed her. "Small family matter to address. Our amazing wedding planner is here." She gestured at me like I was entertainment. "Rachel, everyone. She's made today possible." Scattered, confused applause. I stood there in my cocktail dress, not the bridesmaid gown I'd dreamed of wearing. The vendor badge the security guard had given me hung from my wrist like a scarlet letter. "Rachel, could you check with catering?" Jessica's smile was titanium bright. "That's what you're here for, right? To make sure everything runs smoothly?" "Actually," Morrison stepped forward, "Ms. Thompson is here as a beneficiary of David Thompson's estate." The room rustled with whispers. Mom grabbed Jessica's arm. "Harold, stop this immediately." "Rachel," Jessica's voice went cold, "you're embarrassing me at my wedding." "I haven't said a word." "You don't need to. Your presence is enough." She turned to the crowd. "My sister has always had difficulty with boundaries. Today was supposed to be about family, which is why I'm confused," I interrupted, my voice carrying across the ballroom. "Why I'm on the vendor list and not at the family table." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jessica's maid of honor covered her mouth. The groom looked like he wanted to disappear. "Because you're working," Jessica said slowly, as if I were stupid. "You agreed to coordinate. Coordinators don't sit with family. Sisters do. You're being paid. $3,000 for 3 months of work and $20,000 in deposits I covered?" The crowd's murmur grew louder. Someone said, "20,000? You volunteered those deposits," Mom said sharply. "No one forced you. Just like no one forced me out of the family estate meeting or the will reading I wasn't invited to. You were busy with your little business." "The little business that's planning this entire wedding?" Uncle Pete stood up from the family table. "Linda, what's going on? Why isn't Rachel seated with us?" "She's staff today," Mom announced to the room. "By her own choice." The humiliation was complete. In front of everyone who mattered in our social circle, I'd been officially designated as the help. "Staff?" The groom's mother, Margaret Bradley, stood up. "The bride's sister is staff?" "It's complicated," Jessica said quickly. "Rachel insisted on a professional arrangement." "I insisted on nothing. I was told this was my wedding gift to you." "Gifts don't come with invoices, Rachel. Neither do family obligations, Jessica." The photographer, still recording, moved closer. This would be wedding footage for the ages. "You need to leave," Mom said. "You're ruining your sister's day." "I'm ruining it? I planned every detail. The centerpieces you're admiring, 3 hours each, the menu you'll eat, 16 tastings to get it perfect. The flowers? I was here at dawn." "We know!" Jessica screamed. "We know you did everything. You always do everything. Perfect Rachel, who never makes mistakes, who never needs help, who makes the rest of us look incompetent." There it was, the real issue, laid bare before 200 witnesses. "I never made you look incompetent," I said quietly. "You did that yourself. Dad's company is none of your business. It was Dad's entire life. And he left it to me." "Did he?" Morrison's voice cut through our argument. "That's interesting, considering the will I have here says otherwise." The room went silent. Mom sank into a chair. Jessica's face drained of color beneath her makeup. "Perhaps," Morrison continued, "we should discuss what David Thompson actually wrote 2 weeks before his death. When he was fully competent, properly witnessed, and very clear about his intentions." "Not here," Mom pleaded. "Not at the wedding." "You had 2 years to do this properly, Linda. You chose deception instead." I looked around the room, at relatives who'd watched me grow up, at Dad's business partners who knew how hard I'd worked, at strangers who were witnessing our family implode. The family photographer was still recording, documenting every second of this disaster. "You want me to leave?" I asked Mom. "Fine, but I'm taking the truth with me." I turned to walk out, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Behind me, Morrison's voice rang out clear and legal. "Rachel Thompson, as executor of your father's amended last will and testament, I need you to stay. You're the primary beneficiary." The ballroom erupted. Jessica collapsed into her groom's arms. Mom stood frozen. And I stopped walking. my hand on the door, as 200 people waited to see what I'd do next. This is where everything changes. What happened next not only shocked everyone at that wedding, but also revealed a 2-year deception that went deeper than I imagined. If you're finding value in this story, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear about setting boundaries with toxic family members. Your engagement helps these important stories reach more people. I see your comments about similar situations you've faced. You're not alone. Now, let's see how justice was served in front of 200 witnesses. I turned back slowly. Morrison stood at the center of the ballroom, every eye fixed on him. He opened his leather folder with the precision of a surgeon. "Ms. Rachel Thompson," he said formally, "please approach. This concerns your inheritance." My legs felt like water, but I walked back through the silent crowd. Phones were out everywhere, recording what would become the most viral society wedding in the city's history. "Mr. Morrison," Mom stood up, "this is neither the time nor—" "Linda Thompson, you submitted a will dated January 2021 to probate court, claiming it was David's final testament. You swore under oath no other will existed." His voice carried the weight of law. "That was perjury." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Jessica's bridesmaids clustered around her like protective hens. "Harold, please," Mom's voice cracked. On March 3, 2023, 2 weeks before his death, David Thompson executed a new will in my office. Present were 2 witnesses, Dr. James Chen, his physician, and Margaret Howell, his CFO. Morrison pulled out a document. "Both are here today and can verify David was of sound mind." Dr. Chen stood up from his table. "I can confirm, David was completely lucid." Margaret Howell, seated with the company executives, nodded. "He knew exactly what he was doing." Morrison continued, "David left very specific instructions, quote, 'My daughter Rachel has inherited not just my work ethic but my vision for the company. Jessica, while beloved, lacks the temperament and training for business. I've watched Rachel build her own success without any help from the family resources, proving she has the strength to lead.'" The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. "The amended will leaves 60% of all assets, including controlling interest in Thompson Enterprises, to Rachel Thompson. Jessica receives 20%. Linda Thompson receives 20%, and the family home." "That's impossible," Jessica whispered. "Daddy wouldn't—" "There's more," Morrison said. "David also wrote a letter to be read if the will was contested or hidden." He pulled out another paper. "Should I continue?" Mom collapsed back into her chair. Her perfect facade cracked like old paint. "Don't." But Morrison looked at me. "It's Rachel's choice. She's the executor." 200 people waited. My sister in her wedding dress, my mother finally looking her age, and me, the vendor who wasn't supposed to be family. "Read it," I said. Morrison's voice filled the ballroom as he read my father's words. "To my daughter Rachel, who will likely be reading this under difficult circumstances. I know your mother and sister well enough to predict they'll try to sideline you. Linda never forgave you for being too much like me, focused, driven, perhaps emotionally distant. But what she calls cold, I call strength." Jessica sobbed into her hands. Her groom looked stunned. "I've watched you build your business without taking a penny from the family. You succeeded through talent and determination while Jessica failed at every venture I funded. The company needs leadership, not sentiment. It needs you." "Stop," Mom pleaded. "Please stop." But Morrison continued, "To those who question this decision, know that I had Rachel's inheritance structured as a trust specifically to prevent Linda from manipulating the distribution. Mr. Morrison has documentation of every attempt to coerce or hide this will. Yes, Linda, I knew you would try." The crowd murmured. Someone whispered, "He knew?" Furthermore, if this will was hidden or contested in bad faith, Jessica's portion reduces to 10%, with the remainder going to Rachel. "Linda, you've triggered that clause." Jessica stood up, mascara streaming. "You're lying. This is fake." "The will is registered with the state," Morrison said calmly. "Filed March 5, 2023. Your mother knew. She was notified the day after David's death." All eyes turned to Mom. She sat frozen, caught. "You knew?" Jessica's voice broke. "You knew and you lied to me?" "You weren't ready," Mom whispered. The company would have crushed you. So you let me fail instead? Let me destroy Dad's legacy while Rachel could have saved it? The CFO, Margaret Howell, stood up. We've been waiting for Rachel to take over, the entire executive team. We've minimized Jessica's damage, but the company needs real leadership. 70%, Morrison corrected himself, looking at the will again. With the bad faith clause triggered, Rachel now inherits 70% of the estate. The ballroom erupted, relatives arguing, business partners nodding approval, Jessica's friends filming everything. The society wedding had become a Shakespearean drama. Ms. Thompson, Morrison addressed me formally, do you accept your inheritance? Every eye in that ballroom focused on me. The vendor, the help, the daughter who was too much like her father. I accept. I took the documents from Morrison with steady hands. The weight of them felt right, like something that had always belonged to me. Mr. Morrison, please document that I'm accepting my inheritance as of today, at 4:47 p.m., in front of all these witnesses. Documented and witnessed, he confirmed, as phones recorded everything. You can't do this, Mom stood up, shaking. We'll contest. On what grounds? I kept my voice professional. Fraud? You've already committed that. Undue influence? Dad took 2 witnesses to prevent that claim. Mental incompetence? His doctor just confirmed he was sound. Rachel, please, Jessica begged. It's my wedding day. And I'm not ruining it. I'm leaving, as requested. I turned to Morrison. Please file the inheritance papers first thing Monday morning. I want a full audit of Thompson Enterprises immediately. Margaret Howell stepped forward. I have the last 2 years of financials ready for your review. You've been preparing for this? Mom accused. We've been hoping for this, Margaret corrected. The company is hemorrhaging money under Jessica's leadership. Another quarter and we'd have to declare bankruptcy. Jessica's groom finally spoke. Bankruptcy? Jessica, you said the company was thriving. I thought it was. You never even read the reports, Margaret said quietly. You just signed whatever your mother put in front of you. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Tom, it's Rachel Thompson. Yes, the wedding. I need you to freeze all Thompson Enterprise accounts pending audit. My authorization code is... I rattled off numbers I'd memorized years ago when Dad made me memorize them, just in case. You had authorization this whole time? Mom gasped. Dad added me as emergency executor 3 years ago. I never used it out of respect for family. I looked at her coldly. That respect ends today. The CFO's phone buzzed. Accounts frozen. All company credit cards deactivated. Jessica's phone beeped, her company card declining. Rachel, Uncle Pete approached. Your father would be proud. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Dad would be disappointed it came to this, that his wife and daughter cared more about control than competence, that they destroyed what he built out of greed and spite. The truth hung in the air like a verdict. Effective immediately, I announced to the room. I'm appointing Margaret Howell as interim CEO while I review operations. All spending over $5,000 requires my personal approval. You can't, Jessica started. I own 70%. I can and I am. I turned to the business partners present. For those with pending contracts, Margaret will honor all legitimate agreements. The others will be reviewed. What others? Mom demanded. Margaret pulled out her tablet. The consultancy fees to Jessica's friends, the decorator contract for the office renovation that never happened, the marketing company run by Linda's cousin that hasn't delivered anything in 6 months. Each revelation landed like a punch. Guests whispered frantically. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was corporate corruption exposed. How much? I asked Margaret. Roughly $500,000 in questionable expenses over 2 years. Jessica's groom stepped back from her. $500,000? You told me the company was your inheritance, your success. It is. It was. Mom said. Your mother said a lot of things, I interrupted. None of them true. I walked to the microphone at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. Please enjoy the wedding. Everything has been paid for by me, apparently, through the deposits I made. Consider it my final gift to my sister. I started walking toward the exit. Mom called after me. You're destroying this family! I stopped, turned back one last time. No, Mom. You destroyed this family when you decided I was worth less than Jessica. When you hid Dad's will, when you let Jessica run his company into the ground rather than admit I was the qualified one. Where are you going? Jessica cried. To save Dad's company, something I should have been doing for the last 2 years if you hadn't committed fraud. Morrison fell into step beside me. Your father suspected this would happen. He left you another letter, private, for when you were ready. I'm ready now. As we reached the ballroom doors, the CFO called out, Ms. Thompson, the executive team would like to meet Monday morning. We've been waiting for you. I nodded, then left my sister's wedding as I'd arrived. Alone, but no longer powerless. The wedding continued without me, but from what I heard later, it was a disaster. The champagne toasts felt hollow after everyone had witnessed the family's deception. Jessica cried through the father-daughter dance, performed with Uncle Pete because Dad was gone and she'd just learned her inheritance was built on lies. Videos hit social media within hours. Society wedding exposed as fraud became the city's trending topic. The country club gossip mill went into overdrive. 3 separate guests sent me recordings of Mom trying to do damage control, each version of her story different from the last. By Sunday morning, Jessica's groom had questions, hard ones, about the money she'd claimed to have, the business acumen she'd boasted about, the family wealth that was supposedly endless. His family, old money conservatives who valued honesty above all, were mortified. The honeymoon to Bali was postponed indefinitely. Mom tried calling me 47 times. I didn't answer once. Instead, I spent Sunday with Margaret Howell, reviewing 2 years of financial carnage. Jessica had signed off on everything without reading, letting Mom funnel money to friends and relatives through bogus contracts. The company that had employed 300 people was down to 150, the others laid off to cover Jessica's spending. Your father built this over 40 years, Margaret said, showing me the original incorporation papers. Jessica nearly destroyed it in 2. Can we save it? With proper leadership, absolutely. The bones are good. The reputation is damaged but recoverable. The contracts Jessica lost were through incompetence, not market conditions. Monday morning, I walked into Thompson Enterprises for the first time as owner. The remaining employees stood and applauded. They'd suffered under Jessica's chaotic non-management, watching the company they loved crumble while unable to speak up. We tried to warn her, the head of sales told me. She said we were being negative. Your mom backed her up, said we were undermining female leadership. Female leadership. As if competence had anything to do with gender rather than ability. By noon, I'd reversed 6 of Jessica's worst decisions. By close of business, we'd retained 3 clients who'd been ready to leave. The stock price, which had dropped 30% under Jessica, ticked up 2 points just on news of the leadership change. The audit revealed worse than we'd imagined. Jessica hadn't just been incompetent, she'd been signing checks Mom wrote to herself, $500,000 labeled as consulting fees and development costs that went straight to Mom's personal account. This is embezzlement, our legal counsel said. We could press charges. I sat in Dad's office, my office now, staring at the evidence. Criminal charges would mean prison time. For my mother, my sister. I want the money returned, I decided. All of it. They have 30 days, or we file charges. Mom's lawyer called within hours, trying to negotiate. There was no negotiation. Return the money or face prosecution. Simple. Jessica's marriage imploded by week 2. Her husband's family couldn't accept that she'd lied about everything, her wealth, her business role, even her relationship with me. The prenup he'd wisely insisted on protected him from her debts. He filed for annulment, claiming fraud. Hard to argue against when 200 wedding guests had witnessed it. Jessica called me crying. You ruined my life! No, Jess, you ruined your life when you agreed to steal my inheritance. Mom said it was rightfully mine, that Dad was confused when he changed the will. Dad was many things, confused wasn't one of them. I'm your sister. You were my sister. Then you made me the hired help at your wedding. Within 3 months, Thompson Enterprises was profitable again. We rehired 50 employees Jessica had laid off, landed 2 major contracts she'd lost, and restored faith with our investors. The board officially confirmed me as CEO, unanimous vote. Mom had to sell her country club membership to pay back the embezzled funds. The house Dad left her was all she had left, and even that came with conditions. She couldn't sell it without my approval, another clause in Dad's will she'd tried to hide. The social fallout was complete. Mom and Jessica became pariahs in the society they'd valued so much. The same people who'd watched me humiliated at the wedding now whispered about them at every event. Jessica moved to another state, starting over as a receptionist at a law firm. Ironically, she was finally working for her living. 6 months after the wedding, I instituted new family rules. Mom and Jessica weren't cut off completely. I'm not cruel, but boundaries were steel reinforced. They could attend Thompson Enterprise public events as guests, nothing more. No voting rights, no office access, no say in decisions. Family helps family, I told Mom during our one meeting, echoing Dad's words. But help doesn't mean enabling. It doesn't mean covering for lies or accepting abuse. She aged 10 years in those 6 months, the weight of her choices finally visible. I just wanted Jessica to have something. She had something. My love, my support, my free wedding planning. It wasn't enough because you taught her it would never be enough. You were always so strong. She needed more help. No, Mom, you decided she deserved more help. There's a difference. I learned to stop seeking their approval. The little girl who'd tried so hard to earn Mom's love finally understood it was never about earning. Mom had decided long ago that Jessica was the daughter of her heart while I was just the useful one. No amount of success would change that programming. But I found family elsewhere. Uncle Pete became my advisor. Dad's business partners became mentors. The employees whose jobs I'd saved became loyal allies. Margaret Howell became not just my CFO, but my friend. Your dad would be proud, she told me one evening as we reviewed quarterly reports showing record profits. I hope so. He knew, Rachel. He knew your mother would try this. That's why he structured everything so carefully. He protected you even from the grave. Dad's private letter, the one Morrison gave me after the wedding, sat framed on my desk. Rachel, if you're reading this, they've shown you who they are. Believe them. Build the life and company you deserve, not the family you wish you had. Your strength isn't coldness, it's clarity. Use it. Love, Dad. I did use it. Every day. Not with cruelty, but with clear-eyed purpose. The company thrived. I dated someone who valued my strength instead of resenting it. I built friendships with people who saw me as a person, not a resource. Family can visit, but they can't take anymore. A year later, Jessica reached out. She'd been through therapy, she said. She understood now how toxic the dynamic had been. She wanted to apologize, to maybe start over. We met for coffee. She looked different, humbler, working a real job for the first time. I'm sorry, she said. For the wedding, for the lies, for letting Mom convince me I deserved what was yours. I appreciate that. Can we be sisters again? We can be relatives who are civil. Sisters requires trust. That'll take time. She nodded, tears in her eyes but understanding in her expression. Growth looks different on everyone. Mom never apologized. She maintained she'd done what any mother would do for her struggling child, but she followed the boundaries because she had no choice. The woman who'd controlled everything through manipulation now had no power except what I allowed. The lesson was hard but necessary. Dignity isn't negotiable, not for family, not for anyone. When someone shows you repeatedly that you're less than, believe them, then act accordingly. Standing up for yourself isn't cruel. It's necessary. I didn't destroy my family at that wedding. I revealed what was already broken. The humiliation they'd planned for me became the spotlight that exposed their deception. Sometimes the best gift you can give your family is forcing them to respect you, even if that means they lose everything else in the process. Dad knew this day would come. He prepared me for it not with warnings but with tools, legal documents, trusted allies, and the strength he saw in me that Mom refused to acknowledge. He couldn't protect me from the pain of their betrayal, but he made sure I'd win when it counted. The company he built stands stronger than ever. His legacy lives not in the daughter who was loved, but in the daughter who was capable. And maybe, in the end, that was its own kind of love. To those watching who've been designated the family scapegoat, the useful one, the help, know this: your worth isn't determined by their recognition. Sometimes the only approval you need is your own. Your self-worth isn't negotiable, not even for family. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, Please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories about standing up for yourself with dignity and grace. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Comment below. What boundaries have you had to set with toxic relatives? How did you find the strength? Your stories help others realize they're not alone. Remember, requiring respect isn't cruel, it's necessary. Your self-worth isn't negotiable, not even for family. Until next time, stay strong.